Hi. So we're doing something a little bit new, a little different today. Everybody, make sure that you can hear me. If you would, just Rebecca or Siobhan, somebody hit me in the chat box there and let me know if you can hear me and you can see me okay. Let's see, I don't see anything just yet. Ah, there we go. Okay. Now we're streaming live. It just clicked on my phone. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm going to give everybody a little bit to get in because this is new. And normally we do the live through the Facebook, but our chat wasn't feeding through mine for some reason. Oh, yay. Hey, Nancy. Nancy's here. Okay. Mimi. Hey, Mimi. Mimi says she can hear me. Awesome. I'm so glad. So I'm going to get everybody a few minutes. So if you would, make sure that you pop in the chat box and say hi, say where you're from. That way we can all kind of have an idea. Hey, Becca. All right. Man, we got a great group. All of our friends are popping in. This is going to be such a good discussion. And it's one that we really, I think, need to have because it's something where we've all experienced hurts in the past and we've had challenges, and it's something that we all want and have a desire for, and that's friendships, right? And that's something that I really love about the Mind Your Autistic Brain community. It was one of the big reasons why I started the community, and that was so that we had a place that was safe, that was just us, where we could make friends, where we can make friends with people who got us and understood us and knew what it was like to experience the world in our way or in a similar way. Yeah, thanks for my overlay. Guys, this is my new fun overlay with the coffee cup and my cute little Gabbera daisy. I love daisies. They're my favorite. And I have this awesome sticker on my coffee cup. I've got my little daisy here, and it says, believe there is good in the world. And it highlights be the good. So, that I saw that and I had to have it because I'm like, oh, that's me. I want to be the good. I believe in the good in the world. And I didn't always feel that way. Maybe you guys, some of you might be there. Oh, Jennifer. Hey, Jennifer, joining us from Michigan. Awesome. This is so much better because I can actually see the chat where it was getting lost before and I wasn't able to see it. So I'm going to give everybody just a few minutes. So we've got a really good crowd here today. Hi, everybody. And I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a part of the Mind Your Autistic Brain community. And thanks for being a part of something that's really important. And that is a community where we meet and come together in kindness, in gentleness, in patience, and understanding, not just for one another, but for ourselves. Because that's something we haven't always extended to ourselves, right? I mean, we can be pretty hard and pretty tough on ourselves. Oh, hey, Natalie's here. Okay, she's from England. Oh, great. Guys, I love this. We're from all over. We're spanning the globe, which is really fantastic. I know that this time slot kind of stinks for my Australian friends, so my apologies. I will, in the future, I'm working on trying to get some things so that we can sort of hit all the time zones. We are a global community in Mind Your Autistic Brain. So we're trying to make sure that we accommodate a whole span of time zones here. So why don't we get started and let's talk about what is friendship? What is friendship? So one of the first things that I asked you guys, and give me a sec here, I've got some notes, so just sort of bear with me because I don't want to forget to talk about anything because this is a pretty big topic and I've got some pretty important things I want to share and I want you guys to share back. So if you've got something, you got a question as we go along the way, pop them in the chat box. I'm going to make sure I kind of note them and answer those questions. And several of you sent me questions in advance and said, hey, could you talk a little bit more about this on Thursday when we have the live? So I've got those too. So don't worry, I've got your questions to answer. So what is friendship? Friendship, by definition, a friend is someone that you like and respect or trust. There's two. So you can say respect or trust. That's it. A friend is just someone you like and you respect or trust. That's it. That's the definition. But that's not the definition that we all have when we're asked. And I asked you guys on Monday in the Move Monday post, so that you know how to navigate and find all of the goodness and all the great things that I have in the group for you. If you go to the main page of the Mind Your Autistic Brain group on Facebook, underneath the cover photo, there is a new section that's called Guides. If you click on Guides, it will pull up everything there, and it's grouped by topics. So you'll see the one at the top. There's the first one's for Welcome. And if you haven't checked out Welcome and you're new, be sure you go there because I've got some videos for you and some other things to kind of help you get started in the group. Underneath that is Friendships, and it's got all of the posts and everything there. So if you have missed one this week or you want to go back and reread it or add something after this live chat to that section, please go do that. That is why it's there. It's for us to communicate, it's for us to share, and it's a resource place as well. So when we talk about friendship and we say that it's just simply somebody that you like and trust or respect, that's not how we always define it. So when I asked you guys to share, what do you expect from a friendship? Sort of what is friendship to you? How would you describe it? How does it look? How does it feel? How does it show up in your world? That was a pretty big question. And the number one response was trust. The second was honesty. The third was acceptance. When we are talking about what we want in a friendship, what we expect from a friendship from someone else in our life, we expect trust, honesty, and acceptance. Those are some big ones. Can you guys agree with that? Hit me in the chat box. Say, yes, I agree with those things. They are important elements of a friendship. Kind of check in here. Okay, here we go. I have to sometimes. Okay. Yes. Yes. Awesome. We're getting there. Oh, yep. Thank you. Thank you, Natalie. So when we're talking about what a friendship looks like to us, what it feels like to us, we're talking about also, we're expressing what it is that we need from a friendship. We need trust. We need honesty. We need acceptance. What we've talked about also this week is not just what friendship means to us and what it is, but also the elements of friendship. And those elements are the things that we need or expect, the things that need to be present within a friendship, right? So by definition, a friendship and a true connection relationship, and when we're talking about a friendship, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a true connection relationship. And that can be friendship, which is what we're talking about today. But friendship is also the strong basis and the foundation of a good, strong, healthy, true connection romantic relationship. So friendship is an element to not just the friendships that we have in our lives, in the platonic sense, but also in our romantic relationships. The friendship that we have is the basis and the foundation for that romance as well. So that's another important element of why friendships are important. Is sometimes those friendships are not just the foundation, but sometimes they lead to a romantic relationship. So what are some of the elements of a true connection friendship? So this week when we were talking about the elements, which was on Tuesday, a true connection friendship is where you can both be your true, authentic selves, where you bring your whole heart, your mind, your soul, and your passions to the relationship, where both parties to the relationship are wholly present, known, understood, and mutually invested. What each truly thinks, feels, believes, fears, and needs can be shared safely. So if you guys had to say that that's the relationship that you want in your life, if that just described the relationship that you want in your life and that you're seeking, let me know. Because it's definitely what I was seeking. I sometimes didn't know how to put it in words. And so having that definition by Dr. Henry Cloud from the book, The Power of the Other, where he describes the true connection relationship is that. I was like, oh, that's the utopia. That's what I want, right? That's the friendship that I want and am seeking in my life. And as we're talking about that, we're also going to talk about the different aspects of friendship and relationships as well, because there's a reason, there's a season, and sometimes there's a lifetime when it comes to relationships. And quite often, we're really familiar with the relationships for a reason or the relationships for a season because they end. They're the ones that are really sometimes soul and heart crushing. And I have experienced those, and it has been something that was really tough. And when I didn't understand and I didn't know why those friendships ended, and that they were serving a purpose, that there was a reason. And so I want to read this for just a second. And it's from a poem called A Reason, a Season, and a Lifetime. When someone is in your life for a reason, it is usually to meet a need you have expressed. They have come to assist you through a difficulty, to provide you with guidance and support, to aid you physically, emotionally, or spiritually. What we must realize is that our need has been met, our desire fulfilled, their work is done. The prayer you sent up has been answered, and now it is time to move on. When we have people in our lives for a reason, sometimes it's hard to identify that in the moment. It's usually in the hindsight. It's in the reflective ending of that relationship that we know, that we acknowledge that, that person was in my life for a reason. Sometimes we don't know it in the moment, but we know it at the end. And I'm going to talk about ending relationships as well as we move along. So the other aspect is a season. Then people come into our life for a season, because your turn has come to share, grow, or learn. They bring you an experience of peace or make you laugh. They may teach you something you have never done. They usually give you an unbelievable amount of joy. Believe it. It is real, but only for a season. This was an extract from the poem, and it's written by an unknown author. But I thought this was such a beautiful way. And when I finally read this poem, and I learned that relationships happen for a reason, relationships happen for a season, and then there are the rare ones that do happen for a lifetime. How many of you reflecting this week and following along with the friendship are able to look back and say, yes, I now see, I didn't before, and this is new. So today, now, I see that there was a relationship in my life that was for a reason or for a season. And I didn't know it until now, because I didn't know that that was a possibility. How many of you guys have kind of experienced that? I'm going to give it a second so I can kind of look at the chat. So why are friendships important? Why are they important? I mean, you can give all kinds of different answers, but really it's why is it important to you? The overarching reason, of course, why friendships are important is because we as humans are social. Yes, even us autistic people, even those of us who are autistic. Yes, the world has this horrible misconception and this really wrong belief through all kinds of misinformation that we can't have friends, that we don't want friends, that we aren't capable of having friendships. And this just isn't true. This isn't true at all. My entire life, I've always wanted friends. When I was young, I desperately wanted friends, so much so that I was jealous of people who made friends really easily, and I didn't get it. And I would try really hard, and it's, I refer to my earlier attempts at friendship as sort of like the teenage boy who tries really hard to get a girl's attention. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. So one of the things that's really difficult is, you know, finding those connections. But friendship is really comes back to those basics, those things that we talk about that we need, that trust, that honesty, that acceptance. And one of the big parts and components that are important into an element of friendship is identifying people that have the same understanding. So when we're talking about the different ingredients of friendship and like what it takes to be a friend or to have a friend, it doesn't matter if you're autistic. It doesn't matter if, you're ADHD. It doesn't matter what your identity is. We all seek friendships. We all seek to have another person on this earth who gets us, who says, I see you, and who we can be open with and say, I see you to another person and make that connection. Because we are not solitary people, even as autistics, and the misunderstanding that we are desiring only solitude. Yes, we crave solitude and we need quiet, but that's not all we want. That's just one aspect. We all desire to have connection, deeper connection and relationship and friendships. So some of those ingredients are the trustworthiness, in a relationship. To have a true connection, there's two requirements: that there's trust and that there's responsibility. And that's on both parties' parts. There has to be trust and there has to be responsibility. Great question. So why can it be so hard to find people that we connect with? This was a big thing, and it comes down to knowing yourself and also understanding the context of how relationships are formed. And that's one of the things we're talking about, the ingredients. Because, in the post from Tuesday, I showed a cocktail, and cocktails have all these ingredients. And when all the ingredients are there and they're in balance, it's fantastic. It tastes really good. But if you're missing an ingredient or if it's not in the right balance, it doesn't taste right. It doesn't feel balanced, right? So some of the ingredients for trust, some of the ingredients that are necessary for a relationship is understanding, having a mutual understanding. And this kind of goes back to the empathy side of things when we're talking about we feel other people's emotions. I mean, we're very in tune to that. But there's another aspect to not just experiencing or feeling what other people feel in the moment, because, they put out this energy or this vibe that we connect with. It's also stepping back and being able to predict someone's reason for their behavior. That was harder for me. That took some insight, knowing more about myself, and then being able to translate that into knowing more about other people. So some of those ingredients, first is the understanding side of things. Number one is, do we understand one another? When I'm speaking to someone, do I feel like they're listening? Not just listening, but they have a deeper understanding and they have a perspective of knowledge and experience in their life where they can relate to what I'm saying. And for us in the autistic community, a lot of that comes when we learn late in life that we're autistic and we find other people that are autistic and coming to the party late, as I say. And we all show up and we're like, okay, I experienced this. And the other person is like, yes, oh my gosh, I've experienced that too. Me too. There's so many me too moments. And that is one of the amazing things about when we're seeking friendships. Sometimes we've been trying to connect with people who didn't experience the world in a way that we experience it, or that we didn't know that they weren't experiencing the world the way we were. So there was this huge disconnect in understanding. So sometimes, I mean, for me, honestly, I can say pretty much all my friends now are autistic or are neurodistinct in some way. I mean, I'm ADHD and also autistic because I have found that where that true connection happens for me in my life is that it comes from finding other people that have a knowledge and experience and an understanding of what I say. Like my best friend Rebecca is in the group today, and my good friend Nancy. And when we talk, we get each other. We don't have to over explain. We don't have to go into extensive detail. When we say something, the other person, because of their experiences that are similar, can go, oh yeah, I totally get that. Yep, me too. And we can just kind of roll with it. So one of the things that I really want to encourage you guys to do in the Mind Your Autistic Brain community, one of the main purposes for it being there is for you guys to connect with people that understand where you're coming from. That's a big part. That's a really big part. Let me read the comments. Hang on real quick. Yeah, we didn't know they were experiencing the world in a different way. No, totally not. I thought everybody experienced the world the way I did, and I thought they just figured it out and were better at doing it than me. I didn't realize that I experienced it a totally different way from them, and they experienced it differently from me. Um, yep. Yes, very good point. Yes. Even within the spectrum, we all experience things in a different way. So part of building friendships and building understanding, because even if you meet somebody and you've got other things in common, sometimes we come to understanding because we're open to it. We're open to listening to someone else's perspective and going, oh, okay, so you experience this different from me, but you now understand because I've shared with you what it is that I experience. So it's really good to take that into account because, yes, we do all experience things differently, even on the spectrum. But being willing to listen, to have and find that mutual understanding, that is really important. Yes. Mimi was saying that her other two friends are similar. They have a similar experience and perspective. So the second element or ingredient is intent and motive. So when we're talking about intent and motive, this can get kind of deep, guys. So this is one of those questions that you have to ask yourself as well. Like when you are starting a new friendship and you're determining these questions help you determine if this is going to be a viable relationship. That means, is someone going to be trustworthy? And these are the elements that play into trust. Is the other person responsible? Are they responsible for themselves? Are they capable of being responsible to you as well? And that's the third thing that's another ingredient is capability. Does the person have the capability, the capacity, and the skills to be in a true connection relationship? That sometimes will weed out somebody pretty quickly. If you can look at the person and you sort of experience them and engage with them over, a window of time, you can determine if somebody's got the capability. They've got the capacity and the skills, even the time. Sometimes it's a time factor. They might have all of those other things, but do they have the time? And here's the other thing. Do they have the intent and the motive? It has to be a mutual intention to form a friendship. Both parties have to have the desire to form a friendship. And then it's sort of the deeper part is the motive, your why. And your why is just as important as their why. Why do you want to form a friendship? What is your reasoning for it? Is it because you're seeking to have a richer experience in your life? Is it that you know that you need a friend right now? There's a reason. Maybe it's a season that you're in your life. And even going into a friendship, knowing that it's a reason or a season, that doesn't mean that you can't have the friendship. It doesn't mean that it's wrong, because what you're doing is, and even the other person, you both understand that the intent and the motive is in this season or in this reason in my life or in their life, because this is a two-way street. Sometimes we show up to serve a reason in someone else's life. We show up to serve a season in someone else's life. You know, you got to remember, it's a two-way street. It's not just a receiving, it's also a giving. But what is that intent and that motive in that? And a lot of times, you know, we feel really guilty. We feel really bad. We're like, oh gosh, you know, I don't want to like mislead somebody or make them think that I'm their lifetime friend, when I know that this really is just sort of a reason. We're in a relationship and a friendship for a reason. And you don't always know that going into it. Sometimes you find it out as you go. But just being aware that it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you, you know, it doesn't make them a bad person. It means that you have been able to bless someone for a reason, or you've been able to bless someone, or they've been able to bless you in a season of your life. And all of these friendships, all of these connections, whether they're lifetime or otherwise, they are all part of our growth. They're all part of our unveiling and uncovering and expanding of who we are. Because my big quality question every day for myself is, what do I know about myself that I learned today that I didn't know yesterday? Because it's in that journey that we learn more about ourselves, and we learn more about ourselves through our relationships with others. I'm going to say that again, because that's a really important thing I want everyone to know today. We learn more about ourselves through our relationships with others. There's a lot of things that I've learned about myself. And every time I've learned something really big, it hasn't been alone. It's been through or with someone else. So what's the ability? That's the third thing. So first was the understanding. Second was the intent or the motive. Third is the ability. So what is your ability? Just as much as evaluating someone else's ability, what is your ability in a friendship? I mean, do you have the time? Because friendships do require time and attention. They require that responsibility to the other person. And sometimes in our lives, you know, I know when I had two small children, I didn't have a lot of time. I didn't have a ton of time. There are other aspects of my life where I had more time, and I knew that I then had the ability, the time ability, to be a friend, to have multiple friendships. Sometimes in those busy moments when I didn't have the time, I kept that touchstone or that connection, you know, with maybe one friend continuously. And the rest kind of fell by the wayside, because that was maybe my season. That was maybe, you know, that season of my life. So you also have to evaluate, well, what season of my life am I in? What ability do I have? Am I checking off these things to be a friend to someone else, as well as are they checking off the boxes to be my friend? The other thing is character. Number 4 is character. So when we're talking about character, we're not just talking about someone's, you know, attitude. We're not talking about, you know, are they resilient? Are they a forgiving person? Are they a kind person? And yes, those are characteristics, but also, are they truthful? Do you notice that they speak the truth in love? Is it someone that is a blamer? Do they blame other people for their problems and nothing is ever their fault? When you start to notice someone's character, how they show up in the world, okay, that's probably a better place. How does the person, and how do you have to ask yourself these questions as well. How do you show up in the world? Are you looking for the opportunities in life? Are you resilient when things don't work out? Are you, hey, this sucks. This is really horrible. This was, not the outcome I was seeking, but you know what? I learned something from this and I'm going to move on. Are you a resilient person? And the reason I bring this up is because the characteristics of yourself and the characteristics of the other person play into the friendship. In the sense that when you're talking, when you're communicating with your friend, it's really good to know about what your responses are, what your attitude and behavior is. How do you show up in the world? This is a big question. How do you show up in the world? And to kind of go a little deep on this one, kind of scratch off some of those bobos a few of us have, because we have them. I know I did. I had them big time. And that is, I had some things I had to work on within myself before I could be a friend. Because to have a friend, man, my mama used to say, you got to be a friend to have a friend. And I was like, okay, whatever, Mom. I'm being a good friend, I thought I was being a good friend, but I didn't know all of the components of what being a good friend meant. And being a good friend also means that you're aware of yourself and how you show up in the world, in the lives of others. And I had some things that I wasn't resilient. I was complaining. Everything that happened was for somebody else's fault. Somebody else made it happen. And I wasn't taking the full responsibility for my own actions in the world. And that is a really big part of being a friend. It's like, I'm responsible for my own crap, because responsibility is one of the key components, other than trustworthiness and the capacity in being in a true connection relationship. So I had to do some work on me. And if you don't like who you are, if you don't like some of your characteristics or how you're showing up in the world, and if you notice that it's not helping you, it's hurting you, you can change it. I did. As human beings, we are the most flexible people in the world. Your brain is not static. It is malleable. You can create new neuroplasticity, okay? You can create new networks. You can create anything. If you can desire it, if you can think of it, you can do it if you want to. So the last one, the fifth one, is the track record. So you got to look at your track record as well as the other person's track record. And this this means looking at the history. If you can, as you get to know somebody, what's the history? What's their track record? If they say they're going to do something, do they do it? If you say you're going to do something, do you do it? That's a really big one. Let me read this real quick. Yeah. Okay. So finding the balance in all of this. Yes. And finding the balance in accepting that we've all made mistakes. If you are human, if you have lived on this earth for any given amount of time, you've made mistakes. Good. Mistakes are amazing. They suck. They feel horrible. Mistakes are the lesson. Mistakes are how we grow. Think about all of the things in your life that you've learned. Everything that you know right now, you learned because someone taught you. You learned through relationship in some way. Think about that. Everything that you know, you learned because of other people. Even if you say, well, I taught myself how to do this. Sure, you may have gone out and read an article or read a book. Who wrote it? Somebody else. Someone has always done something before us. And they have passed along their knowledge in one way or another. And how we take that information in, we're responsible for our learning. We're responsible for our growth. We're responsible for moving forward when we do make mistakes. So let's talk about something somebody brought up, and I thought this was really good. So I want to talk about this. Friends come in all forms. Friendships come in all forms. And often, people say, well, I kind of feel like I box people in, like these are my work friends. These are my school friends. These are my, my social group friends in the world. These are my autistic friends. These are, my neurotypical friends, whatever. And so we box people in like this. We categorize them. I mean, we do this. This is just a human thing. We like to categorize. We like to label and make sure that we have some way of identifying who people are. Friendships are the same way. Romantic relationships are the same way. So I want to bring something up that I think will help, because I didn't realize this. I thought if I had a friend, that friend had to meet all my needs. That friend, if it was a true friend, if they were a really good friend, that they filled everything that I needed. That they talked to me when I needed them to talk to me in the middle of the night. They supported me and encouraged me. They gave me great advice. They were fun to go out with and have a good time. They would help me work through a project. If I had like a really big, cleaning project, they would show up and help me. Well, that's not true. And that is really a good way to tank a friendship, is when you put too much responsibility and expectation on one person. I want to break this down. Friendships are really, really important, not just to our world, but to our romantic relationships. Because our romantic partner can't be everything to us, and one friend can't be everything to us. We need other people who excel in that area to fill that. So you can have like 5 categories of friends. Like I have lots of friends, and they're all true connection friends, but they all have a strength, or they all have an area that they're really good in. I'm not good in everything, and I would hate for somebody to expect me to be everything to them when it really isn't my strong suit. It's not that I have a lack or a desire to want to do that. I would love to be able to be everything to everybody, but I can't, because that's just not me, and that's not anybody. So when you think about your friends, you're like, okay, I've got this really great friend. She is so much fun. She's everything. But when it comes to if I just want to cut loose and have a really great time, this is my friend. And I know that if that's what I need that day, she's the person I'm going to call. And I'm going to go, okay, we gotta go have a good time. We got to get out of the house. We got to go do something fun. Let's go have fun. Because that's like her gift, right? And we talk, we share, we have deep connection conversations, but that's like really her strong suit. Now, I don't always call her all the time when that's the need I have to fill, because that would be an imbalance in the relationship. But I know that if I've got a specific need, she's my go-to person for that. So if I have a project idea, I've got one friend, I would not call her with my project idea. I would not call and say, hey, I have this really amazing idea, and this is what I want to do. Because she's going to go, well, have you thought about this, and this, and this is not going to really work if you do it like this. And that immediately would take the wind out of my sails, and all the creativity I'm pouring into that new idea would get completely squashed. And not because she's trying to squash it, because she's trying to help me see all the problems. So I would call my other friend, who is like my dreamer friend. She's my friend that sees the potential in an idea, and she's going to throw in some great other things, and we're going to feed off, and she's going to energize me. But as I start to formulate that idea and all those great things, and she's really given me all of this fantastic energy to go and create, when I put the rubber to the road and I start looking at how do I make this work and have I got all the right parts in and I want to make sure I'm not missing anything, I go back to that friend that I wouldn't have called with my dreamer idea, right? I go to my friend who's going to find the things that need to be included. But in all of those relationships, they're a part of my world. We have conversations, we have connection, we truly share with one another what we're feeling, what we're thinking, what we're afraid of, what we're excited about, and who we are as people. And when we have a group that we can identify to say, this is my core group of people. And, each person has their own strength, just like we do. We each have our own strength and skill sets. And I hope that I contribute to my friends' lives, that they know that, this is Carole Jean's special skill. This is what she's really good at. And when I need this particular thing, I want to be the person they call for that. I don't want to be that's the only reason they ever call me, because that's not really being a good friend. But I know that they do call me because that's what they value in the skill that I offer to our friendship. So think about, what is it that you offer? What is your blessing? What is your skill? What is something that you contribute? And to know that you don't have to rely on just that one person. Not just one person fills everything. And when it comes to romantic relationships, we have to have friends because, I love Josh, but I don't want to go do, airsoft in the woods. Sometimes I do and it's fun, but that's not something I always want to do. I'm like, dude, go make you a buddy. Really. It's okay. It won't hurt my feelings at all. Go play airsoft and, with some guys. So it's really important that even in romantic relationships that we allow for this space for friends, because our romantic partner can't meet every need that we have as well. Like, I certainly wouldn't expect Josh to go quilting and crocheting with me. I want my girlfriends to go do that. So let's talk about some of the benefits of friendship. Benefits is it's a connection that fuels you. It energizes you. It gives you that momentum to go forward when you don't want to sometimes. Friendships also give us freedom. They give us amazing freedom. When you have that true connection friendship, you have a freedom to be you. You have a freedom to express your thoughts, your passions, your ideas, your fears. It can take the scary out of failure and learning. Ooh, this is a big one. Rebecca has been my big taking the scary out of stuff. She and I #do it afraid all last year together. Because sometimes going out into the world is a scary thing when you're all by yourself. But when you do it with a friend, it takes that scary out of it. Friendships challenge and push you. My friendships have done that in so many beautiful ways and in ways that I never would have challenged or pushed myself. When one of my friends does a drawing or a painting, like my friend Kenny is incredibly talented and he paints, oh my gosh, he is such a prolific painter, and my friend Jim. And when these guys are sharing their work with me, it fuels me, it pushes me and challenges me to try new things, to try something that they're trying. It challenges me to push myself to do things that I wouldn't have done, but I feel comfortable because one of my friends is doing it or has tried it or is encouraging me to. Friendships build structure. They build structure in our life. Think about when you build a house, you have to have a good, solid foundation. And friendships, true connection relationships, are the foundation that our lives are built on. They create structure in that we have this touchstone and this strong foundation of a friend to go to and say, I'm having a really bad day today. And I just need you to listen. I don't need you to fix it. I don't need you to tell me what I should do different. I just need you to listen today. Tomorrow, you can tell me how to fix it. Today, I just need you to listen. And friendships give that structure. Friendships unite instead of divide. They bring things together. Maybe even things that you didn't think went together. Sometimes friends will bring those things to light and we will unify them. So on that note of division, I want to talk about a couple of pitfalls in friendships and in relationships in general. And it's something called triangulating. Have you guys ever heard of this? Tap yes in the chat box. Have you ever heard of the term triangulating in a relationship? Let me give everybody a second because there's a delay in my feed. I'm going to read some of the comments here. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so you guys are making some comments on those one-sided relationships. I heard somebody refer to one as a vampire relationship. It sort of sucks the life out of you. And that is a really good way. If you spend time with someone on the regular, because I mean, it's sensory people. Sometimes just socializing can be draining for us. And it's not that we don't want to, and it's not that we don't get something from it, but it can also just be very draining. There's a difference between just being socially drained or interaction drained from, an autistic standpoint of, we've been socializing and I just sort of need a break now. There's also the whole nother layer to that when it's just like those soul-sucking people. If you feel worse about who you are as a person when you leave, okay, I'm just going to get down to the whole Southern thing. Are you the person that lights up a room when you leave? Or are you the person that lights up a room when you walk in? When you walk in a room, do you light it up and people are happy to see you? Or when you leave the room, do you light it up and people cheer because you're leaving? I mean, it's like, when you put that in that perspective, and it's like that person in your life, are they that vampire that they come in the room and you're just like, you feel the light is just gone out and you have just had your soul sucked out of you and every bit of energy? That is somebody to start questioning whether they need to be in your world, right? This is one of those things. So, my mom says, do people smile when they see you coming, or are they cheering when they see you going, right? You want to kind of ask yourself, am I that person? Or also, who in my life is showing up like that? Who is the vampire soul sucker in my world? So when you're talking about triangulating it's just like what I described. So I'm trying to do a triangle here. Here we go. So just think of each point as A, B, C, or D. And the primary relationship person is A, and their primary relationship person is B. And then you have this third person called C. A and B have had a misunderstanding, miscommunication. Somebody said something, the other person got upset. Well, instead of person A going directly to person B and saying, hey, you said something that really kind of hurt my feelings. And I don't know if this is what you meant, but it hurt my feelings and this is how I took it. Can you explain or let me know what you meant? Instead of that happening, person A, they got their feelings hurt. Instead of going to person B, they go to person C and they say, person B is such a jerk. And they said this, this, and this, and they really hurt my feelings. Person C was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe they said that. What a jerk. I cannot believe that. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe you're friends with them. How can you put up with that? You really just need to let them have it. You need to just end this right now. That is not a good person. Or I can't believe they said that. What a jerk. You need to put your foot down and, all this kind of stuff. And person C goes to person B maybe and says, "You're such a jerk. How could you say that to her? What were you thinking?" And person B's like, "Whoa, I didn't know I hurt person A's feelings. I had no idea. Oh my gosh, I feel horrible." And then instead of maybe being able to go to person A easily or correct the situation, person B is feeling awful. They're feeling attacked. They're feeling like, oh my gosh, person A doesn't trust me enough to come directly to me and ask me. They're afraid, or there's something going on that there's a lack of trust there. Have you ever been in a situation like that? Have you ever been in that triangle? Have you ever been one of those people in the triangle? So I want you to just I bring this up because this happens in relationships. All kinds of relationships, triangulating. If it's happening, or if it's happened, or if you feel like you need to go talk to somebody other than the person directly, you need to stop and think, because it is speaking volumes of how you perceive your relationship with that other person. There's a trust factor there. There's a trust factor that's going on. It's either present or it's not present. Either you feel safe to go and say, "Hey, you hurt my feelings. Can you explain to me maybe what you meant? Maybe you didn't intend to hurt my feelings, because we're friends and we love each other and we care about each other. And, as a true connection friendship, we're not intentionally out to hurt the other person. But in however this was going on, this conversation, this was said and it really upset me. And I want to give you the opportunity to sort of speak to it, because I know you didn't hurt my feelings on purpose." And if you're not feeling that way, and if that's not something you can confidently say and do, it's time to evaluate what corner that relationship might be in. Well, let's talk about ghosting. This is a big one. I see it all over the autistic community. People talking about ghosting, even in the not in the autistic community, in the rest of the world, it happens. I see it, people talking about it all the time. Ghosting. So let's define what ghosting is. Because first of all, it's like, first time I heard it, I'm like, ghosting? What are you talking about? I've never heard this term. You got to remember, I am not the most hip person in the world at all. I'm the giant, super nerd who doesn't usually catch up on hip stuff. Okay. So ghosting was and is when you've been in a conversation or you've been texting somebody and you just vanish. Right? Now, we've all been party to ghosting, whether it is being the ghoster or the ghostee. We have all experienced it in some way. So let's talk about for the reasons why people ghost. Think about it from your own personal perspective. If you've ghosted somebody, let's start here. So, why did you ghost the person? Was it personal reasons? It was just like, I don't have the spoons today. This person is really high energy, or today they seem really chatty and they want a lot of engagement, and I just don't have the spoons today. I don't even have the spoons to say, I gotta go. You just gotta go. You're just gone without any explanation. Maybe that's a reason. Maybe it's that the person is making you uncomfortable. Maybe their communication style doesn't match with yours, because we have two different kinds of communication style, guys. We have the way we like to deliver information, and we have the way we like to receive information. And those two things do not always align. They can be completely different. I like to deliver information in a very direct and concise manner. However, when you give me information, I want you to say, hello, how you doing? How's your day going? And then I want you to ease into the information. Oh, I hate being ghosted. At least I try to get back to someone, even if I can't right away. Yeah. I know that feeling. Yep. Uh-huh. Yes. Okay. So you guys definitely know what I'm talking about when we talk about ghosting. But our communication styles are different. Think about, how do you give information to other people? Are you rapid fire, like 10 texts back to back? Are you one long text? Or are you like 20 small texts? How do you like to receive information? How you give it is one way. How do you receive it is the other. How do you like to receive information? Yeah. We all try not to be rude. We do. Sometimes it's just like, I don't intend to be rude, but I gotta go. Right? Sometimes it's just, I've talked to people that are just like, I just don't even know what to say. But our communication style sometimes is different. And one of the reasons that people feel uncomfortable and will ghost, a reason why someone will ghost another person, is the communication styles don't match, and they make one person feel overwhelmed or uncomfortable. And honestly, ghosting has a lot more to do with the person that ghosted than the person who was ghosted. Okay, so the person that just vanishes and you've been having a conversation, it's 90% it's about what they're experiencing. And it has to do with a lack of ability to communicate. It really does. But it also has to do with what they perceive to be their comfort level in communication with the other person, right? So sometimes somebody decides to ghost another person because, and this didn't used to happen when I was growing up because it was a different world. We didn't have this internet world like we do now, and it's a little bit different. So kind of just hang with me on this one for a second, because we're talking about a very different world now, right? And this is a new element to it. It's kind of hard to ghost somebody when you're riding bikes, when you're playing Atari sitting next to each other, when you have a physical presence. Ghosting came about when we have more of an online digital presence and connection with one another. But sometimes it's just that, you think about that swipe right, swipe left, which I really don't get the whole thing, but I have the context of the premise for it. But it's like people almost have gotten to that point in their communication. It's almost sort of that swipe right, swipe left is almost trained people to forget that there's a real person with feelings on the other end, right? Let me read this real quick. People that ghost me tend to be people who I knew in the past, but they really don't want to make the effort in the friendship. Aha, that does happen. Yes, absolutely. So when we're thinking about the context of the world, and when you have a physical presence, there's a different perception because you feel there is this concrete, real person. And when it's digital and it's online and there isn't that physical presence, we tend to disassociate, disconnect that the person on the other end is a person with feelings and is a real human. And it's not that people are trying to be mean, it's that they have conditioned to this automated swipe right, swipe left kind of mentality in the world. And this is where I want to move into setting boundaries on how to end unhealthy friendships or unhealthy relationships. So to start, number one, you have to identify what's not working. what's not working? Is triangulation happening in the relationship? Is ghosting to where, you're only part of that person's life when it's convenient for them, right? Sometimes I'm just going to put in just a little asterisk note here. In the autistic community, sometimes we hit a burnout and we just don't have the skills or abilities, even though we have the desire and the heart. We don't have the skill or the ability in that moment to respond to somebody. Our heart wants to and our mind wants to. But and from an executive function spoon perspective, we're not able in that moment. So I do want everyone to understand, because I know that I've been in this position. My heart wants to, my mind wants to. I want to reach out and talk to and love on that person, but I am so depleted that I don't have the ability. I don't have the skill. That function in that moment is just not there. And it may take me a week or so to get back to somebody, even if I can sometimes even just send an emoji is too much. And I'm just being honest. And I know that I'm not the only one that's experienced this, guys. And it's not that you don't have the heart and you don't have the love. It's sometimes that, where you are in your life is, I don't have the ability to respond to you right now, even though my heart wants to. So you show up a week later and say, look, and that's sort of where where your friendships are. You reach out and you're like, hey, thank you so much for reaching out. I appreciate it. Just reading your message meant the world to me. And I'm so glad that you're part of my life. And I want you to know, I just wasn't able to. I just wasn't able to. And that person, because they're your friend, they're that true connection, they're going to go, oh, I totally get it. It's okay. And I'm glad that you're here. And what can I do to help you? Or I'm just here for you. Or, you don't have to message me back. And when you don't, I understand, and for me, sometimes I'll just send a message and go, okay, dead or alive, thumbs up, thumbs down. That's all I got to know, because I'm worried about you. And I know that that's all that person might be able to do, but I just want them to know I'm thinking about them. Sometimes that's what happens, it's what happens. But it's really important that we understand that sometimes somebody ghosted, not because they had a communication issue, not because they were uncomfortable, not because they're not interested in you. Sometimes in our world, ghosting happens because we just don't have the spoons. It's not that our heart's not in it, it's that we just can't at the moment. But we know that those situations, when it does happen, we know what kind of friendship we have when we come back and say, hey, I'm here. Sorry, I dropped off the face of the earth, but I had to for self-preservation, right? So I wanted to sort of make that distinction for us. So if you identify what's not working in the relationship, going back to what those elements were that we talked about earlier when we're talking about understanding, intent and motive, ability, character, and track record. We look at trustworthy, we look at responsibility. Is the person able and has the capacity to be responsible? Do they have the capacity and the time to be a friend? When we see or we feel, because we're going to feel it before we really acknowledge it, we're going to feel when something's not working, right? And being able to identify what is not working is kind of the good place to start for that. And then to ask yourself the next layer question is, do you have control over what's not working? What part of that's not working do you have control in your actions? I adapt. Sometimes I will adapt my communication style to help fit with that other person, my other friend, because my friends all communicate differently, just like I do. And I try and recognize what type of communication language my friend likes to receive information in, so that I can speak their language in a way to help bring that understanding to our relationship, because that's important to me. And they do the same in return. But knowing what actions that aren't working, what control in that do you have? And when you identify that, like what is happening that's not working in this friendship, and this is the control that I have or the actions that I can take to try and resolve it, the number one thing is to not triangulate when you have those things that aren't working. Talk directly to the person. And if you don't feel like you can talk directly to the person, this is a really good point to stop and reflect and say, why do I feel I can't be honest and speak my heart to my friend? Is the trust there? And if not, that's a bigger question to say, is this a true connection? Is this one that maybe falls into a disconnected, false good, or a bad connection, friendship? And the other question on this is, well, what is not working about this friendship? Well, what is within their control? What is within the other person's control? And if it's something that you can both come together on, and you can say, hey, and this part of our friendship is really not working right now. I am experiencing some stress, anxiety, or hurt feelings, or whatever it may be, because this isn't working. Is this not working for you too? The other person might be having the same struggle in the relationship that you are. And maybe they just haven't identified it yet. And they can go, oh my gosh, yeah, I didn't really, we're communicating, but we're not communicating. Somewhere in here, we've got a disconnect. What can we do? Because I feel like I want to understand you, but I'm not. And the other person could be feeling the same way. So within that, you guys have identified the problem together. Well, here's where you got to start setting some boundaries sometimes with maybe how things go to try and bring that relationship back into balance. So when you're talking about identifying all of these things, if there isn't something that you have within your control to change or to be open and have a conversation with this other person. I had a relationship not long ago, and it was an in-person relationship. And this person I knew needed a friend, and I wanted to be that friend. And she was really fun, and she had a lot of really great qualities. And I thought, this is a really good opportunity, for her and for me, because I was new to the area and I wanted a friend that was physically here. And she did too. She had moved here as well. Well, it was okay. And I was noticing some things that, well, this is a challenge. There's some communication challenges. But then there was an incident that happened, and this person was pretty mean to me. It was pretty ugly to me. It said some and behaved and physically behaved in a pretty hurtful way. And I had to really think about this. And because for me, I was like, I don't want to just ghost her after this incident, because I feel like that would be wrong and that would hurt my heart. And I don't want to just drop off the face of the earth, right? And maybe she doesn't know what she did. Maybe she doesn't realize how mean she was and that she really hurt my feelings. And we had a couple of conversations after that. And she knew it. She knew she had been mean, but she didn't want to talk about it. And everything was my fault. There wasn't any mutual anything. And I had to really put some heart into this one. This was kind of tough because I wanted to do things the right way. I wanted to not be rude. I didn't want her to have one more experience, because apparently this has happened a lot to her, where people just drop out of her life. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be that person. I thought, I'm going to be the person that doesn't do that. And I tried to kind of reach out and start the conversation. And I received some pushback that was basically shutting me down, didn't want to have the conversation, and just forget about it, push it under the rug, and pretend like it never happened was what she wanted to do. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. And I had to question some other things. And I had to say, well, Carole Jean, is she capable? Does she have the ability to accept responsibility within this situation? She didn't. Does she have the capacity and the character of forgiveness and understanding and wanting to grow, to change? And the answer was no. And in that particular situation, I have never contacted her again. So if you want to call it ghosting, okay, I did. But I did it after I took some other steps. It still doesn't feel good. And I'm not going to lie, it still doesn't feel good. I still have this somewhat questioning of how could I have done it better? I don't know. What I know is that I did the best that I could, but I also know that I had to put up protective barriers and boundaries for myself to say, even though your heart's in the right place, this is something that ultimately is not going to serve you and will end up hurting you. And the other person isn't really in this because they don't care if they hurt you or not. That's a hard one. That's a hard one. Very good question. What do you do when these types of behaviors come from your family when you're trained to never cut your family out of your life? Well, that comes down to looking at what you believe about what relationships are and what relationships mean. This was one that we had a really big conversation about family. I believe, and I was brought up, family isn't just your blood. You can choose your family. You can choose your family. Just because you're blood related to somebody does not mean that that person will always be in your life. Just like friends, just like people who aren't blood related to you. Our life is a culmination, a reflection. Our lives are a reflection of the relationships we have in it. Our lives are a reflection of our relationships. That includes the relationship with yourself. And sometimes it's those family relationships that are harmful, that they feel like because they're your family, they're entitled to treat you in a certain way, that they can just tell you the truth and cut right to the chase. And, you know, if they hurt your feelings, too bad, suck it up, buttercup. I'm your family and I'm being honest with you. That's not a true connection relationship. And you've got to set up boundaries and expectations for not just how you communicate and treat others, but how others communicate and treat you. But you can't do that if you don't know what it is that speaks to you and how you speak to others. You have to, and we have to decide and consciously make decisions about what our lives are going to look like, what they're going to be like, and who's in them. And that's a decision that each person has to make. Sometimes there are relationships and those familial relationships that we have in our lives that aren't healthy. They're not good. They're ones that do not serve us and that we are not in a true connection with. However, it is not one that we can completely remove from our lives. That's where you've got to start to establish what your boundaries are within that relationship and how you protect yourself from anything that is harmful in that. It isn't always easy. And my biggest suggestion is to find a good friend to help you work through that, to have another person to talk through that with, who either experiences the same thing, knows the person, and who you have a true connection with. But sometimes you have to walk away. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you don't have a choice, in the sense that you can't completely cut the person out because from whatever reason, they're going to show up at Thanksgiving dinner, whether you invite them or not, whether, because you're going to somebody else's house. But how you allow that other person to affect you is where you start putting in your personal boundaries. It isn't always about what you do externally to buffer or put up a boundary with that person. It really happens internally. It's that you can't be hurt by something that you don't allow to hurt you. And I thought, there's no way. So I wore my heart on my sleeve. Everything hurt me. Everything hurt my feelings. I was so in tune and sensitive and was so wounded by anything that anybody said. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to do that. What do you mean? That just sounds horrible. But I found that it's true. If I don't believe it about myself, first of all, somebody says, Carole Jean, you're the biggest idiot on the face of the planet. I'm like, okay, whatever. It doesn't hurt my feelings. But if you said, you sound like the biggest country hick in the world, it might bother me. So I know I sound a little country. I'm from the South. It might bother me, but it depends on who it came from and how they said it. Because it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Well, sometimes it's just what you say. But if you believe something and you allow it to wound you, it will. So in determining a best course of action, we're going to wrap up in just a minute. Are you capable of hearing and understanding your why? Is the other person capable of hearing and understanding your why? So if you determine there's a problem in the relationship, if you determine, that you both have some actions or control in correcting it, the biggest question is the other person capable of hearing and understanding your why, your reason? Sometimes you don't know if you don't try. Sometimes you can take the track record of someone and your relationship with them and answer that question. So if the answer is yes, then have a chat with the person. Have a direct chat with the person about what's happening that's not working. If it's no, if this person is not going to hear you, they're not going to understand your why, they're not going to listen to you, and they're going to turn it around and they're going to say, this is all your fault. You're responsible. There's nothing I can do about it. It's your problem, not mine. If that's the case, you can send a thank you, because that person's been in your life for a reason or a season. And whether it's ended in a way that feels good or it's ended in a way that feels really crappy, you can just acknowledge, thank you. I appreciate the fact that you have served a reason in my life or a season in my life. And I have grown, and I am going to continue to grow from this and learn from this. And I'm becoming a better me because of you. Because in this life, I am because we are. I cannot be the complete me and the complete person that I am without the other people and the other relationships in my life. They contribute to who I am. I am because we are. And you don't have to, if it would be something that would cause a bigger tumultuous blowout, if you feel like that person might respond in a way that would be detrimental to you, you don't even have to send them an actual thank you note, but still write it down yourself. Write it for yourself, journal it for yourself, and just say, and today's Thankful Thursday, and it's thanking those people, those friendships in our lives that are no longer part of our lives, but that served a reason or that served a season in our life. Because one way or another, that other person has served us and has helped us, and we have served and helped them. And to acknowledge that along our journey is just as important. I'm going to go through these messages real quick to see if I've got anything I want to touch on, if there's any more questions. Yes, or for no reason at all. Sometimes we can't always identify. Sometimes I've had random people in my life and I'm like, I don't know why that person was in my life. In the moment, maybe even it's taken decades to figure out why or what purpose that person served in my life. But ultimately, there is always a reason. There is always something about why that person was in your life. And truly, you can take most of that into your world and go, I don't always have to know the reason. Sometimes it may not be evident, but I know that in some way I've grown, and in some way I have learned a lesson, or I have changed because of it. All right. Well, I don't see any more questions, guys. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being part of this friendship discussion this week. If you have anything that you would like to share or add to our friendship discussion in the group, be sure and go and check those out. Next week, I'm going to have a discussion on ADHD versus autism, because a lot of us have an overlap. We are both. And a lot of times it's hard to kind of tell where one begins and where one ends, and sort of how they interconnect with one another. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.